will present us the webinars that were carried out within our project, and then we will continue with the program and that we will have with a roundtable.
So thank you. Good afternoon to all. First of all, it is a pleasure to be here, and a big thank to our Italian colleagues for the excellent organization. We are enjoying a lot. Thank you. So, I'm Tiago Rodrigues from ADAI, University of Coimbra in Portugal, and in the next few minutes I will talk about roadmap webinars. I will present this roadmap output in brief, and I listed some of the main objectives. So we try to develop webinars serving the project and as well as the DRM community. So we want to collect good practices. We wanted to share relevant knowledge in the field, and at the same time we also seek the dissemination of roadmap projects and all of this information and data. So we try to involve as many as possible stakeholders, like practitioners, end users, and also other EU projects. And we try to exploit and disseminate roadmap projects as much as possible. We developed these activities under the COVID-19 pandemic, so it was a challenge for us. There was a significant increase of the online meetings, also, for instance, the other webinars and workshops, and we are a bit overwhelmed with so many meetings, online meetings at a time. So this might be as a risk because participants are not so keen to get involved. So, and also the decreased efficiency of our dissemination channels. We are in a relatively small project, so it's difficult to increase our dissemination channels and their capacity. And also, for instance, a decreased interest from the DRM community in our topics, in the selected topics. And the last one that I'm listening here is that I'm highlighting here is the technical issues that may arise during these remote events. We kept the webinar structure as stable as possible, the duration up to 3 hours, including a 30 minutes debate section during all the 3 webinars. And we invite between 4 and 6 speakers, and we used always the Zoom platform, sending several reminders to increase the participation. And after the event, we sent a certificate of participation for those who attended more than 60 minutes. This is important to increase the involvement of the people and to increase the participation. As the dissemination tools, we use the roadmap project tools. We also ask the consortium partners and advisory group members to disseminate these events, and we were also supported by established networks and EU projects as well. So the first roadmap webinar was dedicated to the nexus between scientists and decision makers in disaster risk management. We already discussed a little bit on the importance of this topic and this relationship, and I listed here some of the most relevant topics. So how to better integrate the scientific knowledge in the decision-making process, and how to improve this in a practical way. At the same time, we were asking or trying to identify good practices, lessons learned from this collaboration between experts and decision makers. So we started this webinar with a brief roadmap project presentation to increase project dissemination, and this was done by our coordinator. Then we had a presentation by Alexandre Tavares from the University of Coimbra and also from our advisory group on risk management models, enhancing stakeholders' involvement. Then Daniela Di Bucci from Roadmap Consortium presented on building an effective collaboration between civil protection decision makers and scientists for disaster risk reduction, the Italian experience. Then Professor Cocco presented on scientific data and products to support a knowledge base for decision making in disaster risk management, and Flavia Ricard from the Italian National Institute of Health from data to action, epidemiologists and decision makers in management of national COVID-19 pandemic response in Italy. After these presentations, we had a debate section coordinated by Professor Viegas. This webinar was attended by 230 people, and until now we have more than 150 views in our YouTube channel. The recording of this webinar and all the others are also available in our YouTube, are still available in our YouTube channel as well as in our roadmap website. So the views are still increasing nowadays. The second roadmap webinar was dedicated to communication challenges in disaster risk and crisis management. And once again, we try to identify good practices and bad as well in communication in both disaster risk and crisis management. Also identifying challenges, limits and problems that may arise, and the involved stakeholders. And this second webinar well, we start again with a brief roadmap project presentation. Then Nicola Nozengo, a journalist and editor of Nature Italy, presented on crisis communication in a post-pandemic world, what lessons COVID-19 crisis has taught on risk communication, and how they can be applied to disaster and natural risks. Then Lane Stewart from the University of Plymouth presented on advancing disaster risk communications towards people-centered approach, and Lucy Herrera, thank you, presented on listening before we speak, perspectives on preemptive measures for risk and crisis communication. And Lucy is from the University of Agner. Then a wrap-up and general discussion as before. This second webinar was attended by 183 people and more than 200 views on our YouTube channel. The third and last webinar was devoted to the challenges and opportunities for the future of research and practice in disaster risk management. And in this case, we try to present relevant roadmap outputs, and we invited other projects from the same call as roadmap to present also their findings. And in this process, these projects were also involved with the good practices and in multi-hazard risk scenarios, and we try to explore challenges and gaps, and also seeking possible synergies between these EU projects. Once again, there was a brief roadmap project presentation. Then two of our products were presented, bulletins and thematic papers, once again by Julia Faga and Claudia Morsut. Then Galia Terzieva from ISEMI presented CRISPR project. Paniotis Kolius from University of Cyprus presented Artium project, and Nicola Rebora from our Consortium and CIMA Foundation presented on Solutions Explorer. Lastly, Calliope Cravari from the International Hellenic University in Greece presented a resistant project. After the debate, there was a closure by our coordinator, and this webinar was attended by 129 attendees and more than 60 views on our YouTube channel. As main achievements, all three webinars occurred smoothly without any technical issues. We involved more than 1,000 attendees or views, which is a number that represents a great interest from the disaster risk management community in our webinars. These attendees came from many countries that are listed on the right. And these initiatives were interesting to share our knowledge, to collect good practices, and contributed to improve our project outcomes as well. And this was an interesting tool to disseminate our project and to establish outreach activities. And during the last webinar, we were also able to identify gaps with other projects, EU projects, and to seek possible synergies and to think on the future. Many thanks to other members of the ADAI team which were involved and supported the webinar organization, to roadmap team, special for those who acted as speakers during these webinars and who supported this activity, to our advisory group members, which were also very important. They provided us very interesting presentations, and also to other EU projects that participated and presented their results. Thank you to all, and thank you for your attention.
Yeah, evidently I'm not Giovanni De Siervo, but I'm substituting it. So now it's time for Nicola Rebora, who will present us the Solutions Explorer. The presentation is in two parts. The first part is a classical presentation, and then he will introduce us with the application. So the floor is yours. Adesso bisogna condividere. Allora, dove sei?
Vado io, questa qua. Tanto poi vado avanti e indietro.
Ok, allora fai tutto tu. Sai come condividere lo schermo?
Io so. This?
Intanto prima di tutto lo devi mettere così, poi aspetta come si fa.
Va bene.
No, però così non ti vedono loro. Dimmi se faccio. No, vieni, aiutami. Vai. Devo andare su questo, poi devo andare su questo, ho parato forse. Finestra, poi questo e poi questo. Adesso ci sei.
Okay. Now I'm presenting the last, let's say, product of roadmap. There is the application of all the theory and, let's say, the work done and presented before by my other colleagues. I'm Nicola Rebora, from a researcher from Cima Research Foundation, and I want to thank for all the work we have done for the Solution Explorer, Francesca Giuliani, Emilia Midova, and Antonello Libroia, that helped in both structuring from an IT point of view and in filling the example of good practices within the Solution Explorer, so we can a bit more understand how it works and which are the potential potential uses of this tool. This is the general scheme already presented by my other colleagues, but as you see, this the Solution Explorer is in between the work done with the bulletins, thematic paper, webinars, and the, let's say, community that is behind the project. Basically, what is the Solution Explorer? The Solution Explorer is an open source web platform that is available now to the project partners and to the project stakeholders, and can easily, let's say, be open to the general public. But we have to define rules, both of using it and of feeding it with good practice. Because this is, as we will discuss later, a key point to be clarified, to be discussed with a broader community. Basically, I'm showing the idea behind the Solutions Explorer. First of all, the Solution Explorer is divided into three main areas. First has been called Solutions 2. And this Solutions 2 area is related to the overarching policies or, let's say, such as the application of EU regulation, and in practical use we have both the DG ECO regulation on the different action for the PCM prevention, preparedness, response and recovery action, and the Sendai framework that has been discussed also by other colleagues, also producing the thematic papers. This is quite a framework that is suits very well the definition of good practice to be used and put into the Solutions Explorer. And then we have a menu related to the DRM cycle, which so sorting the solution depending on which is the phase of the DRM cycle the good practice is applied to. Then the second area, and later I will show you the functionalities, is related to the characteristics, so the scale, spatial, and temporal, and the risk element, so the type of risk and the asset that we have that are at risk and described in the good practices we are considering. And then the last menu or part is related to the features of the solution, so who are the beneficiaries and the actors involved, the challenges, not easy to define, so, and the solution type, so if the solution is a policy recommendation or an IT tool that is something that is working well for some risk or for some aspect. So basically, this is the idea. Before, let me say, going into the detail, just not to switch too much from the presentation and to the real Solutions Explorer, I will skip this part, there is this, and go on two aspects that are relevant for feeding the Solution Explorer. So defining methodology for good practices collection. There is an open point that should be discussed because let me say, it's, let's say, quite simple to define a tool, or let me say, once you have the idea, the vision, you discuss with the different stakeholders how to structure this. But then defining the way of populating this tool should be really discussed and clarified, because if not, it will be a kind of tool full of different practices that maybe sometimes are good practices, other times are, let me say, can represent minimum standards. So these are points to be discussed. We started defining a kind of questionnaire to propose to the possible stakeholders in order to start selecting the good practices, and in order to have feedback from expert users from the different countries about what can be a good practice to present related to a specific initiative, specific member state, because this is another aspect to consider. And then the other aspect is related to the sustainability. So how the Solution Explorer can be sustainable. So choices have to be made. So to ensure this sustainability, who can populate insert the new good practice? If we have to set up a committee, or if the DG ECO will directly feed good practices that are considered, let's say, good to be put into the Solution Explorer, or allowing a registered user to say, okay, I'm a registered user, since I trust you because I've checked your CV and you can upload new good practices. And the other side, and the other choices are related to the link with the already tools existing. So how we can actually not build up another tool there is parallel or containing aspects that are already in other tools available, but try to make a connection between these different tools. There can be good points, strong and drawbacks for any of the choice, but let's say these are open points that have to be discussed, let's say, for the sustainability of the Solution Explorer. Then I will try to operate directly the. So I don't know if I can share. Is this page shared within the? Let me see. I have to share it again. Share it. No. No, sorry.
Yeah. Here.
Okay.
This and yes, this. And do you want to share this one maybe?
Yeah.
No? Or
Yeah.
this?
No, is the.
Where are
Google,
you?
yeah, go Google, yeah.
Okay.
To share this. Okay. I think. Yeah. As if we go.
Yes, you are sharing this
Yeah, the
one
screen,
now.
but now if I switch.
I'm not sure that you're.
Yeah. Are we sharing? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let me. I already logged in, and when you log in, you find as user. But then later we will discuss a bit. I will show you the different capabilities of the user. You find this menu. So the first point, solution 2. UPCM decision, and so this Sendai framework, so the voices of the different menu you can select, characterized by scales and risk elements. I've described it before, and the feature of the solution feature. So we can, let me say, starting, we populate it with, let me say, action for prevention, action for preparedness, clicking on finding solution. Let me log out, and because I have to cancel the cookies. Okay. Let me see. I don't know why. Let me do it again. I'm sorry, this is. Okay, this is the first page. So it is explaining what is the Solution Explorer and what are its main features. I've described it before. And then if you log in, I put my. I don't know what Antonello can. This is an IT. Let me check. Okay. Okay. This is a minor bug fix we have to. So basically, when you enter with your password, your user, and then you, as end user, you will arrive here. So selecting you can select action for prevention, action for preparedness, for instance, put the beneficiaries or deciding the characteristic of your solution. If you click on Find Solution, then you will find, in this case, 25 results. These are, let's say, good practices that have been selected within our project, trying to meet the different requirements for, of course, let's say, work should be done related to the, let's say, the sources, the reliable sources to be used. So we have to standardize the process of collecting the practices, because this is the first. If not, we can have thousands of practices, but they are not really representative of what we want to use within the solution explorers. And then you can check, for instance, the different practices. Click on one of it, for instance, this one, and you have the description. In this case, is material for educational in disaster risk reduction preparedness, and you have the description of the good practices, the action related to the good practices you have selected, the metadata describing the type of risk, and let's say all the voices I've shown you in the menu before. And then also you have the link to the documents that are related to the specific good practice. And these are, let's say, of course, examples, but working example on how to share the good practices also with a larger audience. If you log in, you have also the dashboard menu, and the dashboard is, besides the description of who you are, provides you information about the good practices that have put within the solution explorer but are needing approval. For instance, you can show the weighting. So all these good practices are put within the solution explorer, but are still in the weighting mode. So you can go there and then check, say, okay, for me, this good practice can be approved, save and close, and this will be visible within, let's say, the main menu of the solution explorer. And on the other side, you have the users. The user that have been enabled, but you can check also the users that are waiting. For instance, Maria is let's say, applied for accessing, but I have still to approve its status. And if I check, I can provide the different rows. So rows of users, so she can basically go and look at the good practices, or a super user that is allowed to put new good practices and cancel also the good practices that maybe she don't want to be anymore in the solution explorer or administrator. And then so if the publishing policy of the good practices, she is putting, if the good practice that this specific user is putting within the solution explorer need approval from the administrator, or can directly be part of the let's say, the solution available to the user. And this, basically, you can manage, of course, your profile, say, the expertise. When you register, you will have to fill this information related to the user. And these information are, let's say, useful for understanding who is working and can act within the solution explorer. So this is basically let's say, the general structure, and we are following and within roadmap. So this is a tool for supporting all the work done in the other task and work packages, and this is a tool for let's say, also for connecting the end users with among them, and with, let's say, good practices that are good, let's say, experiences done in maybe in other countries, or in specific field of interest. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nicola. As it was said, now, as you can imagine, there was a lot of pressure on his shoulder after what Alessandra said before. So, no, I'm joking, of course. Now, it's my pleasure to invite on the podium Mauro Dolce to chair the last discussion, roundtable that we will have for the remaining time. And I'm pleased to leave him the floor. Mauro Dolce was one of the initiators of this project. So it's now he changed job, but he was a very active member of the project until he was in the department.
Thank you, Giovanni. Good afternoon, everybody. I am very pleased to be here now. As Giovanni said, I was at the beginning the coordinator of the Civil Protection Department unit of Roadmap Project. And first of all, let me thank especially Giovanni, because the first input to make this project came from him. And it was a challenge, because he saw that we had to make a doctrine. And I think that this project has been quite successful. I'm half and half, because I was at the beginning. I started the project to make a new machine, to set up this machine, and after 1 year I had to leave. I made this choice, which is a life choice, let's say. But I am very happy to see that in the following 6 months, the machine started to run a lot, and actually all the products, all the objectives of the roadmap project that were established at the beginning, I think have been fully achieved. So I want to thank all the participants to the consortium of this project for the hard work they have made, not only the members of the consortium, but also the external, the experts, the hired expert, and the advisory group. Unfortunately, all this project has been carried out during the COVID period, so in a very peculiar period in a very peculiar manner. And as has been said by many speakers before me, this is the first time that we meet in person, and so I'm very happy to be here, even if I am no more in the project. This round table is, let me look for a presentation. Okay. And you have to share? Okay. Così penso. Mi sa che devi uscire dalla presentazione.
Perché abbiamo chiuso?
Ho chiuso? Sono stato così bravo?
No, non sei riuscito chiuso. No, ma il problema è un altro, che è stato... Non c'è più la schermata che usavamo per uscire, si va da qui e poi...
Senti.
Sì, lo devo però... Dai, grazie, perché prima ci riuscivamo, ma c'è proprio...
Credo si sia chiuso il sito.
Esatto.
Forse ho chiuso una...
No, secondo me è come abbiamo fatto... È Chrome, no?
Sì, è uguale.
Sai che l'ho proprio chiusa perché io adesso vorrei prendere sul desktop. No,
Chiuso, non ho beccato. Ci devo mettere.
non so se chi era collegato deve essere prima di collegarsi. Sei interessato? Non fa niente.
Poi andare avanti con...
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for the inconvenience. So this round table is divided essentially in two parts. In this first part, we will have the contribution of 4 civil protection experts, as you can see here, Linnea Arnevall from the Swedish Civil Contingency Agency, MSB, Natasha Holzinger, head of the Croatian Platform Coordination Department in Croatia, then Carlos Mendes Lucio from the National Authorities for Emergency and Civil Protection of Portugal, and then we will have Eleonora Panunzi, responsible for the Conservatory Buone Pratiche from the Civil Protection Department. I think that you can keep your presentation in 5 minutes, and then we will start with the second part of the round table with the intervention from you, and so we can perhaps conclude this round table on time at 3:45. So let's start with Linnea Arnevall. You don't need the presentation? No. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. I guess we all represent the practitioner side, and I got the honor to start this roundtable. So firstly, thank you very much for having us. Thank you to the organizers for this really beautiful event and yesterday's dinner. I had a hard time figuring out what to say when I got this invitation. I was struggling a bit, as I think, was it Lucia in the in the advisory group also? Like, what am I supposed to be saying here? And I was thinking about good practices in Sweden, and sure thing, there's a lot of practices, but are they good? I have no idea. And I was wondering if I was supposed to share a good practice, or share how we collect good practices, or yeah, those kinds of questions. And one thing I'm taking with me today is at least that we stopped calling them best practices. And I think that's a really good conclusion, because they're probably not the best, but they're as good as we have them. Yeah. So I bring with me two main conclusions from today's workshop. First of all, it's a really interesting project, and I really like your the different components of your project. It's been a very interesting day today. But I bring with me two main conclusions, and it's from the practitioner side, then, is to involve the stakeholders and integrate research and science in disaster risk management. And in Sweden, we have a distributed crisis management system, and we base our disaster risk management around something we call risk and vulnerability assessments. And they're done through the overall bottom-up approach. So everyone, all the stakeholders in Sweden have to do these risk and vulnerability assessments, and they're supposed to be reported up through our system. And so this is the way we involve stakeholders, and it's regulated by law, so everyone has to do it. And then we also have a component of scenarios, and that's how we also involve stakeholders and more definitely the researchers or science to do for our national risk assessment. And then all of this ends up at my unit at the MSB, where we analyze all of this information, and we write different reports to the government to give them some strategic advice of the different weaknesses and strengths in the Swedish crisis management system. And we try to suggest measures and how we can become better. And then so in these different reports, we have an aggregated risk picture and the different threats. We analyze different prerequisites necessary for civil preparedness, engineering capabilities, and also the regional, local level, and so on the geographical side as well, and different sectors. And we provide this to the government, telling them this is what you need to do. This is how we have to improve our capability and our preparedness and our prevention and everything. And then hopefully they take the sufficient decisions on this and provide the sufficient budgetary resources, and then give us assignments telling us that now you need to do this. And then we also use these products to, we provide information to the different sectors, to the different geographical levels. We use this as a strategic direction of budgetary funds and for other instruments like regulation and knowledge. And we try to really spread this to also have the top-down perspective. And what I realized after today, and I think both Claudia and Julia mentioned, how do we actually reach the audience, and specifically the local level? And I realized that the circle in Sweden isn't really closed. And we have realized that we have a hard time actually providing good practices and providing information to the local level. And we are actually at the moment we have a project which I'm the head of. We will use all this information that we've gathered bottom up to national level, and we try to trickle it down again to the local level. And it's actually sort of similar to the bulletins in a way. So we've created like, we call it a risk catalog. So this is mainly on the risk analysis part where I'm an expert, but we have divided different chapters depending on our different risks, and we try to provide them information about how we think about these risks on the national level, and if there's any insecurities in the assessments, which the local level need to bring with them when they do their risk and vulnerability assessment once again. And also provide this common language that we've been talking about today. So I find these, the roadmap products here, really valuable and something that I definitely will bring with me, and especially the bulletins and the solutions observer was really concrete. And I was actually wanting to ask some questions from the presentation of the solutions observer. I was just wondering, how do you, maybe, I don't know, I will ask the questions anyway. How do you intend to make people log in or create your accounts, and can anyone create an account? And can you have an account without actually providing good practice? Can you only make use of them? So I would like to have some answers to that later on, at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Linnea.
Hi.
Okay. Thank you, Linnea, for the contribution and also for the question to Nicola. This is actually a question that I wanted to put, so very good. And then Nicola will reply afterwards during the round table. And so next speaker is Natasha Olsinger.
It's Holzinger, but it's fine, whatever is easier for you. Thank you, and thank you, Linnea, for opening. I know it was a hard job because we were talking all together. We all had sort of similar questions. What are we supposed to talk about? Is it good practices, or collecting good practices, or using them, or what is it? I would also like to thank you for inviting me here. And this is a great opportunity in 2 years to be somewhere physically and talk to people in coffee breaks and exchange experiences. I'm really grateful for this. I'm really grateful and really happy to be here, but also I got a lot of ideas, which means I'm going to have a lot more work when I come home, because when I get ideas, I start doing them, and then that just sort of generates more work, unfortunately or fortunately, because the goals are well, good, I guess. But what I eventually concluded here after this workshop is that we actually in Croatia have the same key areas and the same sort of problems with this good practices and exchange of experience and involving scientists into and sort of connecting scientists and practitioners, as you did in this project. Only we look at it from strictly national point of view, not internationally through other countries. We had been sort of working on our knowledge network, sort of knowledge network. We called it Croatian National Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction for many years now, since 2009. And it's a long process of building a good knowledge network that works continuously, that actually has a use, that has a practical use, not just a lot of talking and a lot of presenting problems, no solutions, etc., etc. So in 2009, it was only that. It was only sort of presenting problems. But we had a breakthrough while developing the first national risk assessment, where we had to have every one of the sectors involved in developing the risk assessment, not just our sector. And we decided to do it not by just collecting data from everyone and do it ourselves, but by giving tasks to different sectors and making them responsible for different risks. So, for example, Ministry of Construction was earthquakes and landslides, Ministry of Health was epidemics, and so on and so forth. This sort of opened our eyes that basically the same people that they were working with, the same scientists and the same experts in the ministries, were the people that were sometimes sitting in our national platform board. But not always, because we only had the high level in the board. So we decided to transform the platform by using this good experience that we had while developing the risk assessment. And we reconstructed it and made it active and different by having a few levels in it. We have the scientists group, we have the experts group, and we have the high level that only meets once a year and only talks about the importance of disaster risk reduction. But we also have the levels that actually develop the documents, that we give tasks to, and that because we give them a task to develop the risk, not only the risk assessment, but the capability assessment, and then now the disaster risk management strategy, and different topics that we talk about, they take responsibility for the document. It's not just a document that we developed and then no one reads it and no one really cares about it, but it's partly their document because they had to develop one part of it and they were responsible for one risk. So we find that while doing this, we are sort of forcing other sectors to talk to the scientists that are related to their risk, but also to take responsibility for the risk and to keep working with us. We kept the same group of people continuously working with us. This is the experts, not the high level, because the high level people unfortunately change too often, and then you have to explain again and again what disaster risk reduction is to them. But we were really interested in keeping the expert people similar, not completely the same all the time, they change too, but so that we can build on their knowledge level and not continue to explain the same thing over and over again. Because when we started with the risk assessment, neither the scientists nor the experts in the ministries and the sectors knew what a risk assessment is. I mean, they knew for them, but they didn't know for us, for the national level, how to make it comparable and similar in every way. And they did it according to our guidelines. But now the next time we do something, they know what they're talking about, they know the risks that they're talking about, they know the risk factors, and it's easier for them to then talk about how we're going to reduce these risks, rather than for us to explain it all over again for them. And it's really important for us to keep this connection with the scientific level, but not just for the civil protection, but for each of the sectors themselves. And it turned out to be a really good experience, because we sort of ensured both horizontal communication and vertical communication through all the different sectors, and the platform sort of is like a translator between what scientists can give and what the practitioners need. So we sort of put them together and really simplify what the scientists are saying to the needs of the practitioners, but also we tell the scientists what projects we actually need and what projects the country wants to finance, so that they focus on those, because both of them were doing their own thing, but not sort of connecting. And we have both data and knowledge, but we just needed to put it together. And that's in our experience, that's what the platform needed to do, and that's eventually what it started doing, but it took some time. I think some of the achievements that we have from this is that they started working together outside of the platform. When a disaster happens, or when there's a need in an exercise or project or anything, they kept inviting the same scientists that we were working with on a daily basis on these documents and these topics that we decided that year through the platform. And so when there was an earthquake, we knew who to call personally, who to call to come and organize after earthquake assessment. When there was a landslide, it was the same thing, and so on and so forth. So basically, when I was listening to the key areas from the vision paper, I sort of saw that we have a lot of things intertwined. So we have an integrated community of experts, sort of. We sort of have national observatories, which we use the conferences for. We have annual conferences, well, not during COVID, but around COVID, where we gave them an opportunity to meet once a year, everyone, both the local level and the scientists and the national level, and talk about their good practices and sort of have them somewhere in a paper. We have involvement of sort of other participants in the construction of our doctrine, sort of. We build on the knowledge that they have, but there is a really big need of a common high-level education and training that you mentioned, and I think it would be good, even on EU level, to have something like that, not just response-related, but also prevention-related, to have everyone use the same language and be on the same level when we talk to each other. We try to use the UNDRR terminology. I know you spoke about not everyone using the same terminology, but still there are always people coming from different areas, and then they use different terminology for, I don't know, vulnerability or something. There are different words for it in Croatian, but at least now we know what word is, and we know what when they say damageability or something, that would be direct translation for earthquakes from Croatian. We know it's vulnerability in our case, so we know what we're talking about, but it took a while to sort of get introduced to it. That's basically it. I really like the project, and I really took a lot from what was presented here. It's more of a hands-on, but also general approach. But I think we are going to be able to implement some of the lessons learned here, and I hope there are more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Then Carlos Mendes Lucio.
Now it is, okay. So good afternoon, everybody. And first of all, I would like to congratulate all the roadmap team for the hard work over the last 18 months. It was clearly shown today the added value of this program, of this project, and you should be proud of the results that you have already achieved so far. I would like also to thank all the arrangements made to make possible that I was here today. Thank you also to Daniela, who triggered our presence here today in this workshop as well. And let me start by sharing that I'm fully in line with my colleagues when they say that while we were asked to be present here, we were not sure what would be our role and what to share with you. So let me start with the lessons learned. And if you are not sure what to answer or what you should reply, perhaps it's better to start with a question. So I will start with questions for you. And first one, who in the room is aware of Prevention Web? Okay. Now let's move to a more difficult one. Who in the room is aware of the OECD Risk Governance Toolkit? Okay, less people. Who in the room is aware, you cannot reply to these ones, Felix. Who in the room is aware of the Disaster Risk Management Peer Review Program? Okay, and who in the room is aware of the Disaster Risk Management Summary Report? So, what these 4 different items have in common is that all of them, all together, in different ways, are good practices in collecting and disseminating good practice. So a lot of information, a lot of knowledge is already available. So the question from, immediate question from my point of view is that, do we have already enough knowledge do you have the knowledge that we need already available, but we are not aware that it already exists. So this is where the roadmap will fit in. I believe that, of course, there are gaps that should be explored. There are needs that we need to overcome, but we also need to put efforts in making better use on what we already have. So this is not a knowledge gap. Sometimes it is, but quite often it's just a dissemination or a communication gap. The knowledge is available, but you just don't know that the knowledge is there. If I need if I'm tasked with a new role or a new project that I have to develop in the National Civil Protection, what is my solution explorer? What should I use? Well, first one, of course, Google it, because somebody has already studied, for sure. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every time. And the second, WhatsApp. We all have groups of experts. We all are networking. We all have somebody who knows somebody. So we just ask, does somebody know how to do this or how to do that? This is the most effective tool that we have on a regular basis. But if you have a one-stop shop where the knowledge is there, is available, and somebody has taken care that the information is reliable information, that is validated, that it's updated, that will be quite useful for us. We always are with time pressure. We are always doing a lot of things. So if somebody already has made this kind of triage before and separate the raw material into concrete and concrete deliverables that could be used by us, that would facilitate our work a lot. So in terms of the vision of this project, this solution explorer, I think this is something that we should go forward. I think the knowledge network could play a role here. I think to have this one-stop shop for scientific community to deliver knowledge, for practitioners to pick knowledge, and for both sides to exchange the needs and to exchange the gaps and to exchange the results would be quite useful. So I'm glad that the roadmap vision for the future is in that direction. And I quite appreciated also the reference in the vision paper of having integrated the expertise that is already available. It's quite important. When we have just one side of the stakeholders involved in the process, there's always something missing. And this is true if you just have scientists, but it's also true if you only have practitioners. So it works both ways. So you have to link these two communities. I always remember I was one of the reviewers of the disaster risk management science report for disaster risk management that was published by the JRC 2 years ago. And I was one of the few practitioners that were acting as reviewers in some chapters. And I have to say that I was happy that I was able to bring some kind of a practical practitioner view from end user to reshape the scientific knowledge that was already there, but that it was not delivered in a way that will be useful for the end users. So to have this two-way communication is quite important. So I will also support this vision of having this integration in terms of the community of experts providing support to this. To be a bit provocative, I realize while Professor Viegas was presenting the advisory group, I might be wrong, but it seems that there was no expert from the National Civil Protection in the advisory group. So probably this is the reason why we were asked to be here, also to bring this practitioner experience and practitioner feeling into the project. Because only if we bring all stakeholders, we can achieve something. But there's one side of the coin that is still missing. We are called practitioners, sometimes we are called decision makers. I'm not calling myself a decision maker. I'm not a decision maker. I'm an activity maker. I work. It's not my role to decide. Maybe I can be an influence maker, but I'm not a decision maker. So decision makers are the ones that lead the policies, are the ones that are at the political level. So we scientists, we practitioners can do the best of our efforts, but there is still a gap above us that is to bring the output of our joint work and translate this in a way that could shape the civil protection or the disaster risk management policies. This link is probably the weakest link because the way we can influence, it's still not very robust at EU level. At least this is my feeling. To finalize and just to share some of the ideas that we are implemented now in Portugal from a national point of view. Our national disaster risk reduction was reviewed 10 months ago, so in last August. So it goes now for the decade to 2030, and it foresees 5 strategic objectives that are in line with Sendai framework and more than 100 different activities. And part of them are dedicated to picking best practices, picking good practice, sorry, and making them available to our main users, who are especially the ones that are closer to citizens, the local civil protection authorities. So we try to include in every time we issue a guideline, a national guideline for the local authorities, we try to not just provide guidelines, but to provide the examples, what is already being done and what can be, how can you pick this experience and adapt it into your reality. We try to, and we launch some awards to bring visibility to good practices. This is the question. Sometimes they already exist, they already are in place, but nobody knows. So if you have some kind of award that bring visibility to this good practice, this could stimulate others to follow the same track. We try to include, and we are now on the way to finalize this handbook of good practices in the COVID-19 management activities from a civil protection perspective. The idea is clear. To manage the COVID pandemic was a huge challenge for civil protection, but it's a challenge that brought us a lot of lessons that could be easily adapted for different future emergencies. And if we have this kind of handbook of fed with information from the ones that were on the field and bringing this knowledge available to everybody, that will for sure facilitate the tasks in future emergencies. And finally, we are also trying to increase the link between disaster risk reduction or disaster risk management and climate change adaptation. In several risks, the good practice that work for CCA, climate change adaptation, of course, they also work for disaster risk reduction. In fact, the goal is the same. So to increase also these different communities, climate change and disaster risk reduction is also a key target on the national strategy. We think that this way will bring us more robust knowledge that will facilitate the work of everybody. And I also think that this is also what Roadmap brought to all of us. The ideas that you have explored during these months clearly show us ways for future improvement, joining and creating the conditions for the permanent decision support from the scientific community, but approaching the two communities and making the knowledge available to citizens. The Solutions Explorer was shown before, but I share the same doubts as Linnea. How can we make this available to everybody? And my advice will be if you go for future presentations on the platform, don't focus too much on users and not users and how to access. No, put the focus on the added value, and the added value is one-stop shop for everybody to know what's already validated, what's already in practice, and what could be useful for the daily activities. So thank you very much, and I hope this I assume provocative reflections will also help you in guiding and shaping the roadmap to phase in a probable near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlos. Last but not least, Eleonora Panunzi from the Civil Protection Department. Hi, Giacomo.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for inviting me to present what we are doing at national level in order to activate an Osservatorio delle Buone Pratiche, because there are a lot of interaction between what we are doing at national level and the roadmap project, above all about for the solution explorer that you presented before, and it's really interesting also for our purpose, and it is very important for us to share with you what we are doing at national level at the moment. Okay. The Civil Protection Code assigned to the department the task of activating an observatory of good practice in civil protection activities. The Italian legal framework established that this is a task assigned directly to the department, and the Osservatorio is one of the instruments that the department can use in order to realize its coordination activities among all the actors of the Italian civil protection system. So the Osservatorio is led by the Italian department, but should include all the other actors that compose our national system. What we are doing, we start to discuss among all the actors in order to define a methodology in order to activate our Osservatorio. It means that we discussed a lot in last months about the methodology that we want to use in order to be able to do what the Italian law established. In these terms, we decide to activate a participatory approach. The main idea is to co-design this observatory with the participation of all the actors of the system. It means that we are trying to discuss with the different actors, with the region, with the municipality, with the scientific community, with the volunteers, and all the operational structure of our system in order to define a common and shared methodology. So we focus a lot on the methodology, and the ambition, of course, is to activate a process that could be itself a good practice, and we hope What we did, we activated this co-decision process, focusing on three main aspects. The first one is what is a good practice? Above all, what is a good practice in civil protection? We studied the literature, but we try to define a shared and common definition of good practice in civil protection, and we arrive at the conclusion that a good practice in civil protection is a process aimed at the pursuit of specific objective consistent with civil protection purpose. The good practice must have been effectively implemented, tested, and applied by the actors of the system, demonstrating coherence with the set objective. So I want to stress about this definition. I think that there are two key words. The first one is process. It means that, in our opinion, a good practice is not just an activity, but it's a methodology, it's a procedure. So we are not focusing we are not only focusing on the results that we will achieve, but we want to focus also on the methodology. And this is also the difference what we see between good practice and best practice. And the other key word is practice, of course, and it means that a good practice has to be tested and applied by the actors. So it means that it's not just an idea, but it's something that we already tested in a practical situation, and we know that it works. The other aspect that we discussed a lot was about the criteria that we can use in order to define a good practice for civil protection. So what are the essential criteria that can help us to decide if some practice can be defined good or not? We choose these three different criteria: efficiency, effectiveness, and transferability. So a good practice must be sustainable in terms of employed resources and also over time. A good practice must be able to successfully achieve the objective for which it was created. And finally, good practice must contain elements that allow it to be adapted and modulated to be used as a model by other contexts. It means that transferability for the Osservatorio delle Buone Pratiche is a really key word. It means that a good practice, to be considered as a good practice inside our Osservatorio, has to be is a model that we can use in other contexts, of course. Another aspect that we consider was the objective of the Conservatory. The first goal is, of course, to improve the civil protection system. So the main goal of the Osservatorio is to systematize the experience of the system in a logic of self-improvement of the system itself. And we want to achieve this main goal through different specific tasks, such as facilitating the identification of future policies of the legislator. It means that we want, through the Osservatorio delle Buone Pratiche, try to address the future choice of the legislator. We want to spreading the culture, the civil protection culture, in the system. It means that we want to increase the knowledge of between all the actors of the system. So within the main system about civil protection, and knowledge between the different actors that work inside the system, to stimulating discussion between the different actors, promoting the accountability of the activities carried out by the different actors of the system, improving the solution adapted in face of common problems. So l'Osservatorio wants to provide a response to the need for identified the tested solution of the actors that can be used by other actors in other contexts, can be modulated in other contexts. What we are, at the moment, we are in the middle of the process. So we are we are working on a document that will summarize all the aspects that we developed during the last months together with the actors of the Italian system of civil protection. And this document will be transformed, I would say, in an ad hoc national directive, so in a legal framework that will define the rules and the governance of this Osservatorio delle Buone Pratiche.
Thank you, Eleonora. So we have finished the first part, but probably we also have finished more or less the second part because the time is over. But if you have some minutes more, perhaps we can conclude the work in with 15 minutes delay. I think that many ideas have been put on the table and many suggestions, many questions also. And some questions were put to Nicola directly. Solutions Explorer seem to have been collected the interest of many of us. So I would start with a short intervention by Nicola, and then if there are other questions from the table. Okay. From the audience, sorry.
Yeah, the Solution Explorer can now be open, let's say, to let me say the general public. So you can also look at the good practice already in there, or let's say without registering, or of course if you want to, let's say, be acknowledged as a possible user and provider of good practices, we encourage you to registering, because in this way we can, let's say, know which is the institution you are representing, which is your expertise, so we can, let's say, build also through this tool a community interested in the Solutions Explorer.
Of course, this is the Solutions Explorer of our project. But once, for instance, DG ECO decides to adopt its own Solution Explorer into the knowledge network, this becomes another issue, because in that case it's not the result of a project, but it's something that's official. So the problem of how to validate the contents, how to upload the contents, which will be the governance, it's an issue that should be addressed, of course. Now as a project, we can put out the result of a project, and it works, as Nicola said, of course.
Thank you. Of course, this project has set up a set of tools that start from the bulletin, thematic paper, webinars, Solutions Explorer, which is really a tool, and therefore they must be exploited in order to to create this community of interested people. Is there any question from the audience? Yes.
It works. Thank you very much. A very brief question, because we hear today a little bit, the Solution Explorer talking about the good practices in DRM. There's good practices in civil protection. And we all know that the DRM transcends civil protection, goes much more beyond the prevention work, the recovery work, that taps into completely different areas of responsibilities in all of your countries. if you talk about the DRM good practices, you as Civil Protection Authority, do you try looking beyond the obvious, core business of your work, or is that's not the case?
I see it as a problem when discussing it with both other countries and other colleagues, but I do as a head of Croatian Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction Department, we try to look beyond civil protection. Otherwise, we wouldn't involve this many scientists in the first place. We would focus on preparedness and response and prevention in the obvious way of, I don't know, alerting someone before something happens, but not reducing the risks. And when we try to do both. Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to say a couple of words on what Carlos said about the availability of the knowledge in official document or official internet site. Actually, I believe that this is just 1% of the knowledge, or 5%. Most of the knowledge is on site and in the local community at different sub-level with respect to national level, and they don't publish. So it is not easy to, perhaps the Observatory of Good Practices has this objective, and this is important to import that in a tool like Solutions Explorer or any other that is accessible to a large audience. And the other point is just one of my ideas. You say that practitioners are not decision makers. In my opinion, practitioners are technical decision makers. Very often you have to make decisions that translate the political decisions, which is very general, in operational decisions. So I believe that there are political decision makers and technical decision makers. Finally, I think that if there are no any other questions, I will conclude this presentation, this roundtable with this aphorism that I like very much. For every complex problem, there's a solution that is simple, neat, and wrong. We live in a complex world, and civil protection is a complex problem. In Italy, we say that civil protection is a function which is carried out by a complex system. And there are no simple problems and not simple solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Mauro and to all the panelists who gave their contribution to this final round table. And now I would like to ask to come to the podium to Arthur and to Maria, representing Andrea Prota, who had to leave because of the celebration for the Federico II University. And I leave you the floor for the final remarks of this workshop.
I'm on. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're all excited about the fact we're about to end. First of all, let me perhaps reflect in the hope that I'm the hybrid expert that Daniela referred to, who had his prior professional experience as a researcher, now trying, to understand the world of policy and decision-making at the European Commission. That I'm able to be exactly this knowledge broker a little bit between those two different worlds, trying to understand the work of the projects community as the project officer in the European Commission, and always trying to look how we can bring back the knowledge, the expertise, the results and outcomes of the work that you do, more than the work that we do ourselves in the institutions. So a lot has been said already today about the knowledge network, about the roadmap project, so I won't be elaborating too much about it. But let me just express that it's been a pleasure to finally, after a year and a half, to be able to meet you, the consortium, in person. Because it is indeed a challenge to implement a project that is supposed to be about, helping networking, community building, when you are limited to this tiny little screen of someone's avatar or an actual face on the screen. And then when you finally meet, you're able to identify faces that you see in the crowd that just like, oh, I've seen this one, and trying to, recall where was it that you saw that particular person. So I'm very happy that we, at the end of the project, but yet, right on time, are able to reconnect and have those conversations that were long overdue. So there were many kind of dichotomies mentioned today in relation to both the knowledge network and the roadmap project, looking at the past, looking at the future, the practice, the science, the problems, the solutions. So I'll just say a few words that we are hoping that exactly the knowledge network, the Union Civil Protection Knowledge Network, will help us get there together. We are hoping that we will allow people to connect, that will put the scientists and the practitioners in a room, make them uncomfortable, make them talk to each other, make them listen to each other, but not only for the sake of talking and listening. We want them to speak with intention and listen with attention so that they actually understand each other, so that they connect on many levels, and that effectively that they also grow, that they learn from each other, that they reflect together, and then improve the processes and the ways of working together moving forward. So that the motto of the knowledge network, connect, share, and grow, is something more than just an empty slogan. So bear with us, as we heard from an example from Natasha. The network in the platform in Croatia has been set up in 2009. We are a much younger baby in this sense. So the knowledge network of the UCPM is at a much earlier stage. We are learning, we are trying to establish how we can work together. And I sincerely hope that together with project communities like Roadmap, we will be able to get there. So let me just finish by thanking the entire Roadmap Consortium. Andrea, who had to leave, unfortunately Maria, Nicola, Daniela, Chiara, and many other people who also spoke today, Claudia, Julia, Emilia, with whom I shared lunch today, so all the people with whom I've been exchanging messages over the past year and a half that I finally had a chance to meet, and many other colleagues that are present here. I also thank Giovanni and the Italian Civil Protection for hosting us here today. I think we all are very grateful for this amazing hospitality. And those of us who have still a chance to explore Rome a little bit, are even more grateful for the opportunity to come here today. And I will finish just with two very advertisement points, maybe, since Carlos also mentioned that DRM peer review process. As a matter of fact, today we launched a call for expression of interest for the experts to support Romania in their peer review. So if you're a DRM expert working with the National Civil Protection Authorities and you are interested in supporting Romania in this process, you can go to the Knowledge Network platform to learn more about the process of becoming a peer for the peer review. And last but not least, I genuinely hope that I will meet at least some of you during the European Civil Protection Forum in Brussels that is happening on the 28th and 29th of June this year. So with that said, I hand over to Maria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arthur, and I want to thank you all once again. First of all, to attending this meeting today and listening to all these, the process that has led us arriving here. That we can say that the name of the project is, it was a right guess, because it has been really a roadmap from the start, and the continuous dialogue that we had starting from the dialogue with the civil protection that really together with us, with the consortium, they helped us to steer and what are the real needs of the end users and of the potential users of this knowledge network, this entity that was a mystery for us. In the beginning, it did not exist practically yet, although the idea, of course, was there. And then we had the chance to see what was the idea and how it was shaping this idea of the knowledge network and how it could help the, I mean, it is formed like, as the rule of the Union Civil Protection Mechanism, it should help in the capacity building and in the diffusion of science between the stakeholders of this large community. So we had to understand how to help this process and how we could contribute to it. So all the pieces, all the persons involved, and the fact that we were able to involve also the broader the community beyond the project partners was an experiment that it worked in a way. It was a demo project, and we saw that it could be done, and so hopefully it could be expanded in the future. So once again, thank you to all, and we hope that this approach could be continued and fruitfully applied also in the future. Of course, there's a lot to be done yet. I think I can close here. Just a few practical issues. Those of you who need the bus, I think not everybody will take the bus, so that the bus is waiting outside, and the others are organized practically with the taxi. Okay, so. The appointment is at 4, so I think now we are in time, and maybe I think he can wait for 15 minutes and then leave. So, okay.
If it hasn't left already.
No, it's 4. He will wait. He will wait for the okay to do. So let's decide together, maybe 15 minutes from now, and okay. Thank you again.